For a powerlifting belt, the first thing we would talk about is thickness and why more thickness isn't necessarily better. If you look at these two belts that we make here in our shop in Florida, these are both 10 millimeter. They have suede on the inside. This is a 10 millimeter belt that doesn't have any suede. So the total thickness of this belt is made up of structural veg tan leather. All of the powerlifting federations will give a maximum thickness that's allowed for belts, and that's 13 millimeter. There's a reason that we don't make 13 millimeter, and that's this. The way most of them are constructed, they use two layers of this right here. This is suede. If I were to take this belt and put a layer of suede on the top and bottom, and I were to measure it, I would have a 13 millimeter belt. Now, by making the 13 millimeter belt with adding the two layers of suede, I have not increased the support of the belt in any way. All I've done is increase the thickness. And that's why I would say that sometimes a thinner belt made out of the right kind of stuff is actually a better belt for powerlifting than a thicker belt made out of something like this. Many 13 millimeter belts are simply that thick because that's what's allowed. So when you're looking at a belt in terms of thickness, it's important to know what the thickness is made of, not simply what the overall dimension is. Because again, simply because the powerlifting federations allow up to 13 millimeter doesn't mean that's what's best for you because of the way that a lot of those belts are constructed. The next question to decide is prong versus lever. This is going to be a very preference dependent kind of thing. On the prong, for example, what you have is something that's a little bit more difficult to buckle, but easier to change size because all you have to do is just select a different hole if you want different sizing from lift to lift or day to day with your belt. On a lever, you have very easy buckling and unbuckling with the lever, but if you want to change size, you need a screwdriver because you've got to move the position of the lever. So on the prong versus lever question, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just the trade-off between ease of buckling versus ease of changing size. The last question, and one of the most important ones, is the width of the belt. So I've got a 2.5-inch custom belt that we've made here. I've got several 3-inch belts and a 4-inch belt. In the powerlifting federations, the maximum width they will allow is 10 centimeter. We commonly call this 4-inch, but it's important to note that 10 centimeter is actually a little bit smaller than 4-inch, and you want to make sure your belt complies with that if you intend to use it in competition. Some people will think that because 4-inch is the max allowed, that would be the best for them. But not everyone can use a 4-inch. It depends on how much space you have between the bottom of your ribs and the top of your hips. If you don't have enough space there, you can't use a 4-inch, even though that's the max allowed. We've broken this down separately, roughly by height. And the short answer is if you're below 5'4", a 2.5-inch may be the best for you. If you're between 5'4" and 6 feet, a 3-inch is usually the recommendation. If you're above 6 feet, a 4-inch is probably right for you. In terms of break-in on belts, if your belt is made out of the right stuff, that is veg tan, top grain leather, you're not really going to have to do anything. It's just going to break in with normal use. There are some belts that use stiffeners and different other things that they put in the middle to add thickness and everything that will never break in, but that's not something that we do. So I would say on any one of our Dominion belts, if you want them to break in properly, the only thing you need to do is use them. You can take them and you can flex them a little bit if you'd like to kind of speed up the process, but it's not necessary. Having the belt made out of the correct material is what is going to cause it to break in. I hope this video has been helpful. Again, what you want to look for is not only the thickness of the belt, but what that thickness is made out of. You want to look at the width of the belt in terms of whether it's 2.5, 3, or 4-inch. And of course, the lever versus prong question, it's one of those that there's not a right or wrong answer. It's just a preference depending on whether you want ease of buckling or ease of changing size. If you want to check out any of our weightlifting belts, DominionStrengthTraining.com. That's our website. You can find all of these. If you have any questions, team@Dominion Strength. That's our email. We can answer any questions there. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.